Is live streaming working? Welcome everyone tonight to meet the candidates for the City of Bayswater. Specifically tonight, West Ward, North Ward and Central Wards. I just wanted to quickly go through some housekeeping. I will introduce the candidates and thank you all very much for coming tonight. And then just a quick some rules around the debating process tonight. Obviously we have a lot of candidates tonight and we want to make sure that this is an opportunity for them to explain why they're running, to be able to talk about their agendas and to do it in a positive and respectful manner. So just in terms of some of the approach tonight is that we would like to show our candidates our respect. So that means our best listening ears on. It also means no bipartisan shouting out. We're not at a football match here. We're actually, this is an opportunity for the candidates to explain why they're running. And so for that reason, we're only taking written questions so that we try and avoid any bipartisan or leading questions in the second half. So the first half, each candidate will have 3 minutes to, explain their manifesto, give a pitch. Andrew at 2 minutes 30 will show up the 30 seconds to go. So that means they have 30 seconds to wrap up before they then get the please stop. Because otherwise we'll be here till midnight. So it's really just a way of trying to manage the traffic tonight. I'd like to thank the Bayswater Collective for organising the event tonight. So that's Kylie Elswood-Smith and Michael Freeburn. It's fantastic that a community association would put an event on like this. Yes, thank you. So what we've done is we've asked the candidates to get into order in terms of West Ward, Central Ward and North Ward. So I'd like to introduce Lorna Clark, Greg Smith. I'll come this way so that those folk who are watching on the live streaming can see that. Georgia Johnson, and Della, Councillor Terry Kenyon. We have absent Martin Tolodo from the West Ward. Central Ward, Stephen Ostasowski. And absent is Mayor Barry McKenna. From the North Ward, we have Stephanie Gray, Philomena Preferarity. I should have actually tested this before. I've done a quick dry run. But Mark Whitehouse and Ben Real Cornell. Absent is Councillor Michelle Sutherland and also Mike Anderton. So could we all just thank the candidates for coming tonight? It's quite a daunting opportunity, isn't it, to put yourself forward and to represent your community and put forward your views and your opinions. So I think also in the spirit of democracy, we need to thank these candidates for making the effort to nominate and be part of this process. I'm going to try and keep this as friendly and as the process flowing as much as we can. We're not here to do an interrogation of the candidates. Tonight's about information and hopefully it's also entertaining. So we're going to start with the presentations and we will go in order of, so I'll just make sure that, they have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, share with the audience why they should be elected and what they hope to achieve. So we'll start with Lorna Clark. Welcome and over to you.
Hi everyone, how you going? Firstly, I'm not very funny, so don't count on me for the jokes, and I'm not great with technology either. So welcome everyone, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for those watching on Facebook. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. My name's Lorna Clark. I live on Coode Street in an old house with my fiancé Lawrence and a couple of shelter dogs. I'm a lawyer by training, but it's actually, rather than that sort of skill set, I find it's a sort of set of values that I sort of ascribe to. Values like fairness, looking out for others, values such as listening and really understanding where people come from and their experiences. And I think I've sort of reached some of these views and values through my family. So my mum used to be a child protection worker in Sheffield, and she worked in disabilities and aged care as I was growing up, so that was a big part of our family. My dad was a bus driver in London actually, and he set up his own small business when we came to Australia. So I have a really strong social conscience, and it's driven me in the last 10 years in the legal and policy work that I've done. So I've worked in both the federal government and the state government. I think it's really important that we as individuals and we as a community are constantly considering how government interacts with people, with individuals, whether it's collecting the bins or social housing or public transport. And as part of sort of my interest in all of this, I ended up studying at the London School of Economics. I studied regulation. A few of my friends thought that was terribly nerdy, but I really enjoyed looking at how rules are made and whether we follow them or not, and how that works in society, basically. Before that, I did a Masters of Environmental Law, so I did a lot of climate change adaptation planning law, water law. So I sort of tell you this to say, look, I take this legal knowledge and this policy experience that I have, and I want to apply it to the real world. I think at heart I'm a pragmatist. I like to find consensus between people and between groups, and I like to find ways through problems, through compromise. So I think sometimes that actually is a good skill set to have on council. So if we turn to the more pragmatic things, I'm going to be quick now. Okay, speed things. The things I'd like to do. I think Bayswater train station, we need to make it what we want it to be. We need to come together as a community, we need to be heard, and we need to make sure it reflects what we want. Second of all, in terms of environmentalism, we need more trees on verges, more tree canopy. We need to push the council on things like tree registers and other environmental issues. Thirdly, read the flyer.
Nice wrap up, Lorna, thank you. Over to you, Greg Smith.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm old, I'm white, I've got to look this up. I'm old, I'm white, and I'm male, but I'm not stale. And the reason I'm running is because not only do I have the qualifications in town planning and 30 odd years of experience in town planning, but I'm passionate about town planning and I'm passionate about Bayswater. The Garden City is what we have our motto to be, and I'm absolutely for that. And I want the Garden City to be an authentic Garden City, and for the goal to be utopia, not dystopia. A perfect place rather than a terrible place. That's my goal, and I think that's what we should be aiming for. Now, I intend, if elected, to hit the ground running. And one of the reasons why I say I will be able to hit the ground running is because besides my BA and grad dip in town planning, I've got experience in local government. But I remember now, 30 odd years ago, working at Belmont, then Armidale, and back to what it was called Waite, and then time at town of Albany, and then 7 years as the equivalent of the Director of Planning at the town of East Fremantle, part of the executive team. So I've got that experience in order to hit the ground running, not to spend 2 years trying to figure out what the standing orders are. Other experience, I used to be heavily involved in politics, president of the Waite branch of the ALP for a couple of years, president of the Town Planning Students Association, president of the Local Government Planners Association, former board member of the Community Television in WA, on the Student Guild. And I was also on the ALP State Executive's Transport Committee and Planning Committee, 20 odd years ago. So I'm coming to the position of wanting to be a councillor from a lot of town planning experience and a lot of town planning academia. I also teach in town planning at Curtin. So the issues that we're dealing with, and it's important to deal with, is the train station, as previously mentioned. The structure plan that we got now is a complete dud, doesn't deal with the issues. The development of Riverside Gardens, the town planning scheme allows a whole stack of development in Riverside Gardens, which I don't think people would like. And finally, Upper Hillcrest Reserve.
Thank you very much, Greg Smith. Georgia Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. The Bayswater Collective is one of many of the groups in the community that have been really active and engaged in the community. So thank you for putting this on, but also for all the community groups that are here and all the community groups that have fed into all the structure plans and all of the stuff in Bayswater that really helps inform our decisions in the future. We have 1,000 people that live in Bayswater who identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and many of them are young people. We have 6,000 teenagers living in Bayswater. Half of the people that live here were born overseas, many of them in the UK or New Zealand, some in India and in Vietnam. That's the diversity of our community that's not necessarily represented here, but it's really important in terms of accessing our council services and our council buildings and all of the things that council provides. So I'd really like to see more work done around those things so that people of all accesses and abilities can get involved and be engaged in our community. Like many of you here are, Bayswater, I've been living here for 24 years. There's so much that we love about it. We have the railway. It was built 1881. We've now got $58 million that are going to be spent on the railway. It's been the heart of our community for a long time, and all of those things are going to build our community better for the future, for all of the young people and the new people that are in our community. We have so many good people in Bayswater volunteering, and we've had the opportunity to listen and learn from a lot of those people here, so thank you. I trained as a chef. I studied here and worked as an accountant, so I get finance. I understand the rate rises, of course, a lot of pain for businesses and residents in our community. That's something that I'd be really keen to not see happen again. I worked in the disability sector, and that's where I learned a lot about access and for some great people. City of Bayswater did Access and Disability and Inclusion Plan last year. It's still current, but there's still so much more work that has to be done, especially around access to playgrounds has been an issue. And playgrounds are where we can be active and where our community meets. Fenced playgrounds bring people to the area, and so do dogs and playgrounds for dogs. So it's something that I spend a lot of time with dogs. I've got Cool Breeze Cafe, it's in the middle of a dog park. My business has done a lot of work around environmental issues and waste reduction. I think that's something that our community is crying out for leadership, and Opportunity Council can lead that. In waste reduction, we've got 3 green bins. We need more flexibility around them. It doesn't suit everyone. More composting, and FOGO is a word I won't talk about now, but you'll hear lots more about it in the future. Just saying that the people that are here can make a difference. Only 26% of us voted last time, and I think we can do better. So tell your neighbours to vote. Please do vote, and thank you for your interest.
Thanks, Georgia. Ben Della.
Thanks, James, and thanks as well to Bayswater Collective for putting tonight on. Thanks to the Bowls Club for hosting, and thank you all of you for taking an interest in local government. That's really important to me, and I'm really pleased to see a good turnout tonight. It means it's really important to you as well. So my name's Ben Della. I grew up in Bayswater on Hill Street in a lovely old weatherboard home, and one of my actually genuine first memories in life is the first time I ever took our dog for a walk down Hill Street to the town centre when I didn't have my parents with me. I was really proud of myself at the time. The dog was called Yobby. And I have a few memories. One is there's a lovely bottle bush tree outside our house. I can't remember for some reason. I think I was collecting the bottle bushes off it. But the other is what the town centre was, because I did a bit of a lap around down King William Street and came back home to Hill Street. And it's not much different to what it is today. We're talking now, coming up on 30 years ago this was. So it hasn't changed a lot. Bayswater is still a great community for families, and that's one of the things I love about it. It's one of the reasons I'm back in Bayswater. Bought my first house here, lived there with my beautiful fiancée Serene, our dogs, and we'll be here for a long time. But it hasn't changed, but change is coming whether we like it or not. Bayswater Station is going to be the second most important station precinct in all of Perth. With the Forestwood Airport link coming in, the Ellenbrook line coming in there, we've got two paths we can take in Bayswater. Bayswater can either be a ride-through or a drive-through suburb, where people go further down to the city, go further down to Beaufort Street, or we can become a destination our own right. We can create thriving town centres in Bayswater, places you can live, you can work, you can eat, you can drink, you can shop, you can play, and really build on the community we have. That's really something that's important to me and something I want to see for Bayswater. I want to also talk about council and rate rises. 4.95%, the highest in WA. So let that sink in for a minute. In the midst of a mining downturn, we're up in the Pilbara, population leaving, ratepayers leaving, just not going in a good direction. Bayswater was the highest. They managed to keep their rate rises lower than Bayswater. That's shocking to me. I have an investment finance degree, I work in management consulting. I have the skills to look at those rates and make sure that we're spending them on the services and facilities that you want, you need, and you'll use as a community, and that we cut out the waste we're seeing right now on the council. That's really important to me. The other thing I think that separates me from a lot of candidates for council is I have never been a member of, and I'm not a member of a political party. I have no political ambitions. I work for St John God Healthcare and Management Consulting. I'm not here to further my political ambitions. I represent you. That's a privilege because I won't have a party room to answer to. I won't have a party looking over my shoulder at my decisions. I'm only here to represent you. I'm truly independent here. So thank you again very much for coming out tonight. Again, please vote. It's really important that you make your voice heard in local council elections. If you don't get a chance to ask me a question here, I'll be at the bar afterwards. I'll grab a beer with you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Councillor Terry Kenyon.
Yeah, good evening everyone, and thanks for attending tonight. I've been a councillor of the City of Bayswater for over 23 years. I've been dedicated to the community. I've actually lived in Coode Street. We've lived all our married life in Bayswater. It's 47 years. And I've seen changes in Bayswater. I don't belong to any political party, and I've got no ambitions to be a politician. I've been asked in the previous part, but never accepted. So I voted here for the City of Residents of Bayswater to make the place a better place to live in, a better place to come home to. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about the redevelopment of the railway station and so forth. That's great, that's going to happen, but to redevelop the shopping centre, we need to get the shopkeepers on board. But they've got to spend some money to change some of the rules around there so we can have more restaurants and more eateries and different things where it actually happens. But you've got to get the businesses on board to do that, because without them it's not going to happen. Certainly seen the changes in a lot of the things we've had in the Bayswater. We've had a lot of things happen. The rate rise, I certainly wasn't part of that. Did go at 4.95%. It was fairly high, and it's one of those things that it affects everyone. But I'd like to see something happen for our aged society. And our aged society gets forgotten about. You know, we've got Murtone Village down at there, which is used by date. Its age, it was built in 1972. I'm looking at the council, whoever gets elected. I wish all the candidates here tonight the best of luck, and whoever gets elected, I'd ask them to make sure they look after our aged society, because we're all ageing and we need to look after them. And unfortunately, it's not about selling off your commodity, it's about actually redeveloping your commodity and making it a safer place for them. Certainly with the youth, we have a lot of youth, and we've done a lot of things along the way for the youth, but there's still a lot more can be done, because you have a lot of kids that don't play sports. Some who do dancing, we have our dancing part of it. I introduced when I was the Mayor of Bayswater that we don't charge ground fees to the clubs as long as they pass the savings on to the kids. So you get more kids on the park enduring in sports, so you entice them to come there, and it's not as expensive for the parents. But I've certainly enjoyed the 23 years being in local government as a deputy mayor, as a mayor, and I've certainly seen changes happen. But the demographics have changed in Bayswater. We've got a lot of younger generation coming in, and they want to see things happen, and that's fully expected. So the council's got to get on board and develop that and endorse it and say, this is where the younger generation want to go. We've got to look after them, but we've got to look after the older generation. They were mediocre along the line, but I just think it's going to be a good election. There's so many candidates this time, and I wish you all the best, and that's all for me. Thank you.
So these are all the candidates for the West Ward. Could we just thank them all for their contributions? So we're now moving to Central Ward, and unfortunately Mayor Barry McKenna has passed on his apologies. He's got a family incident. His wife's fallen over and is not well. So Stephen is representing Central Ward. You're the lone candidate tonight. So over to you.
G'day everyone, my name's Stephen Ostasowski. I live on Farley Way in Bayswater. I was born in Kalgoorlie in 1978 and our family moved to Perth in 1982 and we rented a house in Grey Street and then Mum and Dad bought the house the next street across in Farley Way in 83 and I still live in the same house today with my mum, with my husband and it's great living with Mum, she's awesome. I have a vision for Bayswater. There's industrial areas in Bayswater which are dead. Well, not dead, but there's buildings that are empty. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm a trained musician, and I'm heavily involved in the art scene. I imagine our industrial areas being rejuvenated, just like they did in Detroit, like they've done in New York. Imagine these industrial areas filled with bars, restaurants, cafes, theatres, orchestra spaces, bookstores, hairdressing salons, architects, all of these different, I suppose, professions coming together in hubs right here in Bayswater. We're about to get a line coming in from the airport into Bayswater. We're also going to become, well, we could become a tourist hub. Why don't we grab onto this opportunity, have extra amenity and things for us to do, all these bars, cafes, restaurants, theatres, etc., etc. We can all go to these places and enjoy these things, but also let the tourists come in and come to Bayswater instead of going to Perth. Make Bayswater a central hub, make us a unique hub. We've got the Swan Valley, 15-minute drive away. We've got the city, 10-minute drive away, or on the train, let's say, sorry. We've got the Galleria, which is going to get redeveloped. Bayswater is the place to be. So our industrial areas, I think we can really, really, really regenerate these areas into thriving hubs. Now, if they become thriving hubs, we can then rate those properties. So in terms of rate rises, well, part of the reason I'm stepping up this year is because my mum got her rates bill. And our rate rise was around about the 5% mark. And I said to Mum, that's not good enough. And I was imagining these industrial areas, so I thought, hey, we can rate these properties, that can help lessen the burden for the ratepayer. I looked at Mum's rates over the last 10 years, put her onto a spreadsheet, put up the graphs. It looks like there's going to be constant rate rises over the next couple of years unless something changes. So my platform, if we can say, is really about rates. It's about using our underused facilities to bring more money into the city. It's about finding buildings in parks, put a little cafe down there so we don't have to go to Mount Lawley. We can just get on our bike or walk to our local park and go and have a wine or something like that. It's about finding opportunities to use our facilities, use our buildings, use our venues to lessen the burden for the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen, and Central Ward. We're now moving into North Ward, and first up, Stephanie Gray.
Thank you very much.
Right, hello. Welcome everybody and thanks for coming and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. Let me begin by telling you what I'm not. I'm not experienced at council matters or procedures. I'm not a politician and I'm not an aspiring one. Not terribly experienced with the law or policy matters. However, there's a number of things that I am that I can bring to the role as your representative on local council. My partner and I, Rob, have 3 children. They're now 2 teens and 1 young adult. And if this doesn't give me experience in conflict resolution, I don't know what does. By profession, I'm a primary school teacher with more than 30 years experience teaching and in administration. I work as part of a collaborative team every day, negotiating and persuading, and they're my toolkit skills. On a daily basis, I work with a wide range of people, sensitive issues and the odd temper tantrum. Listening to varying points of view and finding creative and positive solutions with tight budget constraints are everyday things in a small school environment. And I see these skills translating directly into things that I can use as a council representative. Our family's lived in Naranda for over 20 years. It's the fact that we love every minute of living here that I was driven to run for this role. In my daily life in the community, I've heard people commenting about things that should be done, could be done, need doing better, and that someone needs to do something about it or say something about it. And I've even said it myself. So I decided that instead of saying someone should do it, perhaps I could be the someone that can stand up and make a bit of a difference. I'm very passionate about our area. While I've been out door knocking over the last couple of months, I've listened to many people in the North Ward who are looking for honesty and transparency and a fair go for our community. We've discussed the need for a better range of services for families right through to seniors. And while we've got many young and growing families in our area, our average age is also increasing. So we need services that can be shared by our senior residents and bring us together, and that's very important. We've got beautiful green spaces in our ward and the whole of Bayswater, and great sporting facilities. They need to be improved and maintained, and that's also a priority for North Ward residents, along with the valuable security patrols that keep our homes safe and secure. Obviously, things in the North Ward, we've got Northlink having a significant impact in our area, and the long-awaited Metronet's on the way. So I believe it's important to have vigorous consultation with the residents and to have a local voice who will listen strongly advocate for residents' best interests. I love the community in Morley and Naranda. I'm very proud. I'll listen, respond and advocate for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Philomena.
Hello. Hi everyone, my name is Philomena Piferetti and I'm a candidate for the North Ward. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the Bayswater Collective for having us here and thank each of you for coming and showing an interest in us candidates. Can I ask any North Ward residents here to raise their hand, please? That's my family and Stephanie's family. Okay. Sorry. That's what I thought. I just launched my campaign a week ago, and since then I've been receiving emails from a bunch of people, including Future Bayswater, the Bayswater Collective, Bayswater Deserves Better, and even individual Bayswater residents. What's concerning to me is that I'm not getting any engagement from North Ward residents, and I have to ask myself why. Is it because residents in our area aren't interested in local government issues? Or is it because they feel like they haven't been listened to by the current councillors that are representing us, and so they don't bother? So what I hope to achieve if I do get elected is to be a councillor who gets more people involved in local issues, who gets people excited about place activation, who makes people want to live in a vibrant community rather than just a suburb. I want to see progress in the North Ward, and we need to move forward, not go back to basics. Having lived in the area for 36 years, I understand that the North Ward has different and unique needs compared to the rest of the city of Bayswater. And the reason why I'm running is because we need a strong, true local voice to stand up for the best interests of the North Ward. And most importantly, we need someone who will get results. It's not good enough to put ideas to council if you're not going to get the numbers to pass it. I have the skills to be a councillor who can build productive working relationships with the other councillors to get positive results and act in the best interests of the ratepayers. I also want to stand up for all the people struggling to pay their rates due to the unnecessary 4.95% increase. This could have been avoided if there was better planning and less waste. My main priorities are stopping rate rises, stopping the waste, considered project and budget planning, and getting a better deal for the North Ward. We have missed out compared to everyone else, and it's not good enough. This lack of investment in our community impacts our children, impacts the value of our homes, and it impacts people's decision to want to live in our area. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna. We'll now move on to Mark Whitehouse.
Thank you, James. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight, and thanks to all the candidates here as well, because in my experience of what I've seen there, it's virtually a volunteer job, and it takes a lot of commitment to be on any kind of council or any kind of board. So thank you, everybody. My name is Mark Whitehouse, and it's lovely to be able to discuss the matters that are important to you. As it's been noted, I'm actually in the North Ward, so the Bayswater town site is a responsibility of the council as a whole, but I'm nominating for North Ward. As a board member, some time ago, I was involved in Lead On, which was a youth mentoring group sponsored by the Bendigo Bank. And we encourage youth to work and engage with the community by running things like the Maylands, the Morley and the Bayswater street fairs. So I'm well aware of the benefits of active business centres. As past president of CEBA, the Business Association, for 4 years, I liaised with many businesses and the other business associations and the Trader Group Advisory Committee, which is set up at the City of Bayswater, as well as worked with the Small Business Development Corporation on their strategy for the 2030 plan. I've lived in Morley since 1969, went to Morley Primary School and high school when we used to cycle through the bush to get there, and had a business in Morley until about 6 months ago. We've recently moved up to Malaga, and that's a whole issue in itself. So that business now is almost 30 years old. So it goes without saying that I have a strong desire to see the city as a whole flourish and reach its potential. We've always talked about it in Bayswater, and I still don't think it's done it. So the reason I re-nominated this year after missing out on by 4 votes last time was that I was a bit frustrated to see that some of the things that were happening then are still happening now. So it's motivated me to give it another go. As a side note, do you know that the average PlayStation game has a 90-day sales cycle? In my business, we manufacture CDs and DVDs and USBs. We get 2 price changes a week. The pace of change is massive now. So I dare say that many of the ideas that we're talking about, they'll be outdated by the time they're implemented, and that's pretty scary. So it does need people that have some kind of vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Now, the last candidate for North Ward is Ben Real Cornell.
Thanks, James, and thank you to Bayswater Collective, but most importantly, thank you to everyone who's come along tonight. This room would be quite boring if it had just been us sitting up here talking to each other. My name is Ben Real Cornell, and I'm running for the North Ward. I've spent most of my life living in the city of Bayswater. I was born, raised and schooled in Morley, Wells Square Primary School, head boy of Hampton Senior High School in 06, and soon after graduating was president of the school council and vice president of the P&C committee. I'm a qualified high school teacher, however I have spent the last 5 years working in government. I've chosen to run because I believe that while the city of Bayswater isn't a bad council, it could be better. It has lost its way. Take for instance the almost 5% rate rise, the highest in the state. State average was 2%. Neighbouring councils like Bassendean, 2.5%. Then you even had councils like the town of Cambridge passing 0%, but we got smashed with 5%. And that shows just how out of touch some of the councillors actually are that supported it. I've been out door knocking. I actually resigned from work back in July to run. So I've door knocked over 2,500 houses. And the one thing that people keep saying is how out of touch some councillors are. A perfect example that was actually raised with me that I didn't even realise was that some councillors actually thought that ratepayers' money could be used as their own personal piggy bank. Tried to donate money to South Sudan. Now I know we had a redistribution of the boundaries of the city of Bayswater recently, but I didn't think they stretched as far as South Sudan. Ratepayers' money should not leave the city. It certainly shouldn't leave the state, and it most certainly shouldn't be going to the other side of the world. We have plenty of things that we can be utilising that money for here. Now, if elected, one of the things I will be fighting for, though, is a dedicated, enclosed, safe and secure dog park. There are over 5,500 registered dogs in the city of Bayswater, and while we have dog exercise areas, there is no dedicated, enclosed dog facility. And this is what residents are raising with me. They're saying they have to go to Whitehouse Park to utilise facilities like that, but they should be able to get them here in their backyard. And if the council actually utilised the money correctly, we would have money in the budget for that. And one last thing that, before the time runs out, is an increase to security. Residents are raising with me that they don't see the cars, they don't see them out and about, and so thank you very much.
So thank you very much to all the candidates for the forgotten, it appears as though the forgotten North Ward, but just remember that there is a live streaming Facebook page, so hopefully one of the things that all of the candidates can do is ask people in your wards and your neighbourhoods to dial into the Bayswater Collective and have a look at the live streaming. So what we're going to do now, that's the first half, which was around each of the candidates explaining their manifesto. We've now, and hopefully anyone that wanted to ask a question has been able to write them down on the paper. So Kylie has randomly got the questions together. We do have some questions for all of you. And some of you might, one of the candidates was talking about technology. We're going to use a sprint. The idea is that we're really after a 30-second or less response where all of you provide a response. Now, if you don't want to provide a response, just say pass and you can move on. And we're also going to ask, so some of the questions are directed at specific candidates. So I'm going to read those verbatim and you have 1 minute to respond. So similarly, Andrew will also put up the 10 seconds before the end, the yellow card and the red card. And can I just also say thank you very much for honouring the time deadlines to each of the candidates. You're fantastic coming in at 3 minutes. Yes, so it's the ward. So we've got questions for each of the wards, which are hopefully those questions are going to be obvious for me to read out. Okay, so let's do the individual ones and then we'll do the group team one next. Okay, so I just better get the spectacles out. And hopefully you've all written nicely in your best handwriting so I can read these. Okay, so this is a question from Gary Warren. Where's Gary? Thank you, Gary. So this is a question to Greg Smith in the West Ward. Question: is it true that you want to bring in a policy to have private landowners retain all trees over 5 metres high in any redevelopment of their property? And question 2, if so, have you considered how this might affect individual property values? Okay, you ready?
In essence, I exactly want to do that. However, it's not true to say all trees. What I want to do is to stop the willy-nilly clear felling of lots of land before people submit their development. The only way to do that is to amend your town planning scheme so that trees become part of the assessment. And that's what I want the town planning scheme amendment to do. And it can be only done either by heritage listing the trees or creating a significant tree list, and each one of those, every tree above 5 metres would be on that significant tree list. So the answer to that is yes, but it's not all trees. Conservation, not preservation. There was two questions.
Okay, so I'll give you some time. Sorry.
So the second part of the question.
In essence, I view that the issue of the significant trees is just like the issue of heritage listing of a building. Mostly there are benefits to flow from it. We all know that having trees on your property increases the value. It's been tested that trees on your verge increase the value. Trees on your private property give value both for you and your neighbourhood. And I would treat it exactly the same way as you would treat a place that is heritage listed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Greg. The second question is from Joe Lipari. Is Joe here? Oh, thanks, Joe. And it's to Ben Della in the West Ward. And the question is, how have you formed your vision or your views about the Meltham structure plan and or the future of the train station for the residents?
Thanks very much. Meltham's a really good question because a little bit like Bayswater, it's got a few paths ahead of it. Whether we like it or not, last year PTA put it on their list of kind of we're going to close this one day, so to speak. Now the politicians, the election came. No, PTA put it on their list. All right, PTA put it on their list. You can believe what you like. PTA put it on their list saying it's going to close, but it's not, and that's great. Let's make sure it never closes, right?
Ben, can I just hang on? One of the rules that we had was around respect, and if the candidate believes and has provided the information, it's up to us to listen nicely. So thank you for the audience. Carry on, please, Ben.
I think we want the same thing. We want it open. We want to keep Meltham open, and the future of Meltham is in taking advantage of the fact that you're up there on a hill with a beautiful view of the city, you've got a train station, you have the potential for an amazing community, but right now we've got empty shops. It has some ways to go. That's where I think Meltham is important, about getting people living in and around Meltham train station, getting people walking on the streets. That's how you bring an area to life. It's foot traffic that makes all the difference. That's what's important to Meltham, and that's my vision for Meltham. We've got to get people living in there, we've got to get people on the streets, using that train station, shopping, eating, working, living locally.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question, Rochelle Petrovich. Rochelle? Thanks, Rochelle. This one is for Ben Real Cornell in North Ward. Question is, given the choice, would you vote against the wishes of the ratepayers and the policy recommendations of government departments and instead vote in favour of a noxious concrete batching plant within the boundary of a residential estate?
Thank you for your question, Rochelle. Look, at the end of the day, it is certainly something that you have to look at, and everyone that goes on to council will have to weigh up between walking that fine balance between ratepayers' wishes and then also government departments. Now, certainly, if elected, I will be representing the North Ward, and I will gladly ask the North Ward residents what they thought of the batching plant, and certainly if they supported it, I would support it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next question is for Stephen Ostasowski from Paul Carroll. Hi, Paul. For Central Ward, the question is, health and safety is paramount in all business and our lives. As such, do you believe that the residents adjacent to the Shelford Reserve are in danger with the noxious concrete batching plant being built? Is it cement? Yes, mate. I'm sure you know what that means. There's the question. Here's your mic.
G'day, Paul. How you doing? I live not far from the concrete batching plant as well, so where my house is, we get all of the dust that's coming from that area into our house as well, and we often think, where is it coming from? We're thinking we're washing our towels on or something, but no, it's actually coming in from the concrete batching plant. So in answer to your question, your health, absolutely, your health is paramount. The health of everyone in that area is paramount. Even across Walter Road, I've been doing some door knocking where Hampton High School is, and even the residents over there are experiencing issues with dust coming from the concrete batching plant. So health and safety is paramount in all business and all lives. As such, does this candidate believe that the residents adjacent to... Basically, I'm with you, mate.
Okay, so the next...
Question for Terence Kenyon from Barry Kramer. Is Barry here tonight? Thank you, Barry. So, Councillor Kenyon, you're currently an elected community representative, officially listed as an undischarged bankrupt, now looking to be re-elected. We, the ratepayers, have paid you attendance fees of $34,000 in advance to attend meetings and represent us over the past year or so. To date, you've been absent 18 times from committee meetings and 13 times from ordinary council meetings. That's a total of 31 meetings that you have not attended. As the $34,000 was paid to you in advance, described as an attendance fee, I believe it is reasonable for you to return $28,360 paid to you for meetings you never attended. Can we expect this to happen?
Yes, I'm happy to answer the question there as far as Barry Kramer. I know Barry because he's a former councillor from Calvary, and he had litigation put against him from up there, and he had to leave town. But anyway, this is about this part. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's before the courts. It will be overturned, and I expect that to be overturned. It's a due process you've got to go through, and unfortunately, I can't do much about it. It's before the courts, and the courts will overturn it, and I will be back as a full-time councillor. And about that, I've actually, when I became a councillor, you didn't get paid for being a councillor. I did it voluntary, and I've done it for 23 years. And 15 of those years, you didn't get paid for it. So, you know, I just think some of these questions, they really don't know the facts before the court, and they've got to get the facts. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Okay, the next question I have is for Greg Smith. Is Paul Shanahan here tonight? Hi, Paul. Greg Smith in the West Ward. So the question is, Greg, when you're elected as a councillor, you know that you must govern for all residents in all wards. This means that you must govern for the residents in the wards, and you must have an open door policy and listen to all views respectfully, even if you don't agree with them. You must act transparently, and when voting on an issue, put the community interest first. This means not pandering to a vocal minority. My question is, Greg, do you commit to always treat all residents and their various views with respect? In addition, please describe how you will do this, given some of the dismissive comments that you've made to fellow community members and councillors with whom you disagree in forums like Facebook and several pseudonyms and aliases like Greg Jones that you use.
Thanks for the question, Paul. I don't think is this working? Thanks very much for the question, Paul. I absolutely have the capacity to listen to what anyone has to say, and I absolutely have the capacity to dismiss comments that are complete nonsense. Someone comes to me and says that they want to knock down heritage buildings in the town, 9 and 11, want to destroy the significant tree behind 9 King William Street. I'm not going to say I think you've got a good idea there. I'm going to say I think you're stupid. I'm going to say I think what you're trying to do is bring dystopia to the town, not utopia. So listen, accept nonsense, never.
Okay, the next question is for Ben Della. So this question is from Keith Clements. Thanks, Keith. Do you agree with Future Bayswater's recent comments in the WA newspapers about height limits in the Bayswater town centre?
As I understand the article I think you're referring to is in the West Australian, is that the one? So I think that the Bayswater town centre is an area where it has the potential, as I said, to go one way or the other. We do need to see development in the town centre if that's going to be a place for us all to live, for us to work, and for us to play and enjoy ourselves. To do that, if you want people on the streets, you do need density, and that does mean height. One of the reasons I think that we should be careful of seeing height as a really negative thing is when you go up, you're not taking out trees, and you're not actually taking out heritage buildings. There aren't any trees or heritage in the sky, so to speak. So it's not as simple as every tall building is okay, and it's not as simple as every low density building is okay. We need quality guidance, and that's not something Bayswater's done very well. We are looking at those design guidelines, design review panels, but it's very early days. We've really got to improve the way we actually assess on a case-by-case basis what's being proposed, rather than arbitrary limits saying this high or this small or knock it over and clear fell, which is what we're seeing now.
Thank you. Question here from Michelle Pryor. Michelle, thank you. So Westward, Terry Kenyon. The question is, how many and what motions have you made in the last few years as a councillor?
Just try these, so you've got to pick off the bottom of that one. As far as motions that I've moved over the last 2 years, okay. Motion I moved was for the Bayswater Tennis Club to revitalise and rebuild the tennis club, as far as that's concerned. I put that on council supported me on that, and we're going to redevelop that. I've moved motions for the Bayswater Bowling Club, the Bedford Bowling Club to reduce their debt. Council got rid of their debt. I supported the actual Baysy Rollers to come to the Bayswater Bowling Club, because that's where you need a home for that. They're a great youthful bunch of people, and there's quite a lot of motions I've moved over the years, but just to get them in one hit, I just couldn't think of all of them, but I certainly moved the motions for the betterment of the society and for the Bayswater.
Thanks, Terry. And this question is for Greg Smith. Is Ryan here? No surname. Ryan, a question about the trees, about the tree register, and do you think that owners of homes with heritage value should sign a voluntary register and be made to maintain that home to a high aesthetic standard? So who's that? We've got a, it just says Greg, it doesn't give me a surname. We did want to be able for the candidate to talk to the person who wrote the question, but clearly, so the question is, do you think people should sign a voluntary register?
The question asks about a tree register. So I'm for a tree register. Do you think the owners of homes with heritage value should sign a voluntary register to be made to maintain it? I don't know of any heritage register that has any requirement like that. Don't know. It may exist, I don't know. I've dealt with heritage issues as a town planner to a fair degree. I don't know of that. I do know that council gives, I think, $5,000 per lot, per heritage dwelling, if they want to preserve or conserve the dwelling. And of course, there are other enormous advantages that can be given to owners of heritage property when they want to develop. In essence, if you're developing a heritage property, you don't have to comply with the requirements of the scheme.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's all the individual questions we have now, is questions for all of the candidates. So I'm just going to get a quick instructions here from Kylie. Okay, so I'm going to start at Lorna's end first up. And we're going to, each of you will get 30 seconds to reply to this. So the question from Michelle Pryor is, are you currently or have you previously been a member of a political party or distributed promotional material for a political party? If so, what have you done?
Sure. I'm a member of the Labor Party, but one of the things I think needs to be made clear in all of this is you don't run for council as part of a political party. In fact, under the Local Government Act, you are an independent, and the Labor Party doesn't endorse candidates. So you can know that I will go into council meetings representing you.
I am a former member of the Labor Party. I haven't been probably for about 30 years. I did help with the Greens, the election of the Greens for down in Fremantle a number of years ago. I wasn't a member, but I helped out with the Greens. I am currently a member of the WA Party, the party that led the push to get the GST kept in WA. Thanks.
Thank you.
I am a member of a political party. Like Lorna said, that's not what brings us to local government. It's a passion for the area and an interest in the area. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Which party? Greens Party?
No, I've never been a member of a political party, never been involved, affiliated, attended a meeting, or done anything related to a political party. As I mentioned before, I'm really here to represent you. I don't have political ambitions. This isn't a stepping stone for me in estate politics, as too often happens on council. It's genuinely all about the local area. That's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Terry?
Yeah, I'm not a member of any political party. I've got no ambitions to be a politician. I'm just here on behalf of the ratepayers.
I've never been a member of any political party and have never handed out flyers or anything for any political party. My job as a councillor, if lucky enough to get elected, is to be there for the residents and for the ratepayers. That is solely my job, to listen to each and every single one of you equally, respectfully, and I'll also treat you thoughtfully. I'll treat you respectfully and I'll think thoughtfully, blah, 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 blah. Sorry. This is tough, you know.
Thanks for the question. Yes, I am a member of the Labor Party. I joined at the last election because the values really resonated with me, and however, I'm too old to be a politician. So yes, I am a member, but never too old. I don't know. Thank you. That's it.
Hi. Yes, I'm a member of the Labor Party, and like Stephanie, I joined about a year ago. And as Lorna said, I understand that being part of a council is being independent and representing what the ratepayers of our area want.
Thank you, Philomena. Yes, I was a member of the Liberal Party. I was asked at the last election by Ian Brixer to help with his campaign. Some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life. 48 hours with no sleep. If anybody's actually been party to working on campaigns like that, you know that it's darn hard work. I've never been scared of hard work. But for me, and working on the council, it's a completely different issue. I'm there for the community. Thank you.
Hi, yes, I'm a Liberal Party member, proudly a Liberal Party member. It wouldn't take much for anyone to realise that, because all you need to do is Google my name and the first 3 articles that come up is the charitable work that I've done with the Liberal Party. Christmas for the Troops, where we prepare packages for the troops that are away from their families at Christmas. We've done that for the last 3 years, but I stand by that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you.
The next question for all the candidates is from Matt Kavanagh. Thanks, Matt. So this question is, do you live in the ward in which you are running? And if not, why have you chosen that particular ward? So I'm going to start with Ben and travel backwards.
Thanks, Matt, for your question. I don't live in my ward. However, I have spent most of my life living in Morley, and I do have a connection to the ward with lots of friends and family that live in the Morley and Naranda area. So, yeah, thank you.
No, I don't, but it's not my fault. I haven't moved in 28 years, but the electoral boundary did. So, not my fault. My dad and my sister still live in North Ward, and I'm just on the other side of Beachfront Road. So, that's my reason.
Yes, I live in the North Ward. I've lived there for 36 years, and I have all my mum and my brothers and my kids now get to enjoy the North Ward with me.
Thank you.
Yes, I do live in the North Ward along with my extended family. We chose that as our first home when we got married, and still there and intend to stay forever. And hopefully our kids don't intend to stay there forever. Thank you.
My house is on Farley Way, and yes, it is in the North Ward. And sorry, I told you it was tough. It is in the Central Ward, and we're on the other side of Tonkin Highway. And I've been schooled in that. I was actually schooled at Anzac Terrace Primary School, which is just over the border in Bassendean. I went to Chisholm College, which is in West Ward, and I actually worked at the Galleria in Morley. So the whole surrounding, Central Ward, West Ward, all of Bayswater is me basically. But yes, Central Ward.
Yes, I live in West Ward, 147 Coode Street.
Yes, I live in West Ward with my beautiful fiancée Serene. We've got 2 dogs, Nigel, Gizmo, a cat Fear, and a rabbit Nibby as well. And as I said, I grew up in Bayswater. My parents bought their first house in Bayswater. I have a long connection to West Ward right here.
So what street are you in?
In Railway Parade.
Railway Parade, okay.
Yes, I live in West Ward, work in West Ward, play in West Ward, volunteer in West Ward. Spend most of my life in West Ward, except when I go to Morley or Mayonnaise. My kids live in West Ward. I live on Lake Street on the Bike Boulevard, also in West Ward.
Great.
Live in West Ward, Rose Avenue, within the village centre.
Thanks, Greg. I live on Coode Street. We're in a heritage house, which I absolutely fell in love with. And we go down the local shops for coffee, and I'm hoping that the small bar arrives soon, the wine bar, and perhaps a new bookshop. I'm looking forward to new bookshops.
Thank you. Can we thank the candidates for all those quick skills? I feel sometimes a bit like a quiz master. We're here and the next lot of questions.
So all the non-West Warders can now take a breath and say that you're done, basically. So you can just relax and let the West Warders.
Okay, so what we've done now is put all the West Ward questions together. So, you're welcome to stay up there on the stage if you wish, or you could retire. So the first question is from Nick Zeus. Nick, thank you. The question is to all of the West Ward candidates. What is your opinion on high-rise development, 5 stories and above, in the Bayswater Town Centre? We might start with Terry and work back that way.
Don't support it.
So I think I touched on this in the question around height there. For me, it's not about limits on stories. I think you've got to look at how it fits into the local area. So you've got to assess the quality of any development proposed. I've seen really ugly 3-storey developments, and I've seen really beautiful 5-storey developments there. So I'm about case by case, and that's what good town planning is as well.
And I've definitely heard the community around the Bayswater Village is really keen to have development that's within the heritage and scale and the sort of bigger human scale of the area. I do think there's probably some potential in other parts of the town centre structure plan to go higher, and that might be along Beachborough Road. It doesn't have those issues. There's certainly potential, but I wish the structural plans would, probably like Ben said, make beautiful buildings and not necessarily stuck by density.
Can I have the question again? The typology of the town centre, the historic town centre, is 2-storey and single-storey. Doesn't matter how good the design is, a 5-storey building does not fit in. It doesn't fit in with the amenity of the area as is. Simple as that.
That's great.
I think we need to look at each development application. I think there needs to be more community consultation. I worry about the impact of some of the DAP processes and the loopholes that are being used to get around some of the town planning. I think the structure plan, you know, it's had consultation. We need a Meltham structure plan as well. And I think there needs to be better buildings. I've lived in tiny little flats and people don't want to buy them. I think that's why people are not buying the ones currently on offer.
Okay, thank you. So, Dinah Watt. Dinah here. Over there, thank you. So the question is to all the West Ward candidates. With low-density subdivisions being responsible for the majority of the destruction of our tree canopy, do you support the Conservation Council's position on supporting higher density development in transport hubs and the town centre? Or do you support further urban sprawl and degradation of the character of our suburbs in order to keep building heights low? So we might start again with you, Terry. So,
yes. Look, high density in the hubs, in consultation with the actual residents, because the council's really got to come back to the residents and see what they want. It's all right to say the council puts this and says you're going to take that, you've got to live with it the rest of your life. So I actually think the community should be involved when you have a high density situation, because the other problem is when you get into this urban sprawl, you're having more traffic in the streets, you're having more traffic congestion, and you have a lot of rat running through the streets. So I certainly
Yep. So look, it's a similar theme, obviously, in some ways, but I absolutely agree. I actually really get quite frustrated and sad, I guess, when I see blocks just getting knocked over flats and they put in, you know, those low-density single-storey villa complexes. Quality development comes up. I don't necessarily see all of those as quality development, and I think transport is a fantastic thing at which you can focus development around, and that's where there are opportunities to do good quality density development. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Dinah. We've got the 4th lowest tree canopy in Perth. We're on the edge of the Carnaby's cockatoo habitat. We really know that chopping down the trees is punishing for all of us. And so high density where we can, where we're fortunate enough to live, is actually going to be good for the broader environment and great for us here to bring a bit more vibrancy to our streets.
Conceptually, TOD development, transit-oriented development, is a good idea, conceptually. But there's no reason why you need to impose that upon areas and destroy existing amenity. So, good theory, bad practice. The idea that we should destroy our inner suburbs in order to stop the urban sprawl, nonsense.
I just want to remind us what the question was. So I do think we're in a main transport hub. We do need some density. We do need some density. We're in a main transport hub. But I'm really concerned about how we do that, how we plan it, and how we're consulted about it, and where things go, I think, is really important. And we need to keep building our tree canopy. We've just had new trees planted along Coode Street. It slows the traffic down. It's better for everyone's health. It's better for the environment. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, because there's 6 questions next, I'm going to start with Ben, and then next round I'll start with George, and then I'll start. So in other words, they all get a chance to go first, and we keep the process moving. So this one's from Tessa Hopkins. Hi, Tessa. So this is to all West Ward candidates. The question is, do you support the retention or the demolition of the best and oldest heritage and character buildings in King William Street and Watley Crescent as the pathway to revitalising the Bayswater Town Centre? I'll start with you, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I want to retain. Where we've got really nice heritage buildings, we need to retain those, and there are some beautiful examples in the town centre, so I absolutely support that.
Yeah, yes, retain the ones that look good and keep the scale of the development, you know, in line with those, and keep the elements of the history that we love when we walk down the street.
I have an absolute desire to retain the heritage buildings in the town centre, but I also know that SCAR 12 is a death sentence to all of those heritage buildings. SCAR 12 is the current town planning scheme.
I think we should protect the heritage in the town centre, but I think we also need to allow for development. So it needs to be flexible. I've seen it done really well by some really good architects. I think it's possible, but you need to have that flexibility. Our house has already been upgraded and updated. We don't have to do that, but you need a rules-based thing that incentivises and encourages people to still utilise those buildings to enable them to keep being useful and relevant, I think.
I'd just like to say one thing. If you look at the mass development, which happened when I was the mayor in Bayswater, down at the actual Bayland Centre, where they had the 70 units put behind the facades of all the heritage buildings. All those heritage buildings are still there, and the mass development was put behind it. You don't even know it's there, so it does work. You keep the heritage, but you actually put the new part behind that, so you're not destroying the heritage or the facades of the buildings. You keep those as they are, and if you go down to Bayland, you'll see the 70 units behind those, and you don't know they're there.
Thanks, everyone. So this question's from Linda Slater. Thank you, Linda. For all the West Ward candidates. The question is that the Mayor recently stated at a council meeting that the City of Bayswater has been unable to deliver on more than 40 of the 46 actions outlined in the City's 2012 local housing strategy, due to it being a small council and lacking resources. With that being the case, it seems unlikely that the City can redevelop what seems to be the second most important station in the Perth hub, station hub in Perth. What will you do to generate support from the state government to ensure its agencies invest in an integrated approach to the revitalisation of the Bayswater Town Centre?
Thanks, Linda. And it's quite detailed. I'm not sure that I can answer it terribly well, except I did note that the council has referred on that they're going to have a workshop and get together and talk about with the Metropolitan MRA, whatever they're called, to coordinate that. And obviously the money coming into the centre is a good opportunity for that. So as long as they take on board, you know, the community's feedback already into that plan, then I think that could really work really well.
I was on the Bayswater Structure Plan Working Group as a representative of the Bayswater Urban Tree Network. We managed to get a very good vision statement with that structure plan, but nothing else. I would be incredibly concerned for the citizens of Bayswater if the MRA took over the planning of the station. Democracy out the window, transparency out the window, local community out the window.
Yeah, I was concerned about, not specifically those, I'll look into those details, Linda, but in terms of the train station, there have been some proposals to kind of outsource it to the state government. I held a community meeting about a month ago now to basically say we all need to come together so we can tell the state government what we want, but I don't think we should give them all the control.
Yeah, just with the council, it's the resources can be utilised to be put in place, they can be done, but as Greg said, some parts of that part of it, where you lose control of it, I certainly couldn't endorse that it should be kept under control of local government so you can actually move forward with it, but I certainly wouldn't support giving it to the MRA.
It's a really good question, and it's come up around how the council doesn't have the resources to get that done, and absolutely we need to keep local voices important here and not let those local voices be lost in this. So doing this right will mean that who takes the lead on this with the state government? With them coming in, they're going to spend $86 million on that train station there. So who's going to take the lead? I think Bayswater can do that and facilitate that community voice at the table. We have to be part of the conversation because, as Barry alludes to, we haven't got the resources to do it locally.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to that round of questions. The next one is from Greg DeRuy. Greg, thank you. So this is a question for all the West Ward candidates. The question is, what actions will you take to support local business and employment to thrive? And we're going to start with Greg.
I buy my eggs from the local shop. I buy my coriander from the local shop. I buy my spring onions. I buy my rice. I buy occasional coffee and drip. Very occasionally I go to Tablespoon, and sometimes, occasionally, I go to Howdy. That's how I support the local businesses. And I even go to Greg DeRui's chemist shop.
I think this is really important.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Okay, is everyone still here? Okay. I think it's really important we support these local shops, otherwise you have empty shops. So one of the things my third point that I didn't fit into my time was that we have a no empty shops policy, and we actually start to talk to owners of these buildings to have pop-ups and exhibitions and events in there in between leases. It's been done in the UK, it's been done in Northcote in Melbourne. It means you don't have empty windows, it means things don't look derelict, but otherwise, yeah, that's just fine.
Yes, it's important to have vibrant businesses in the area down there, but to be fair too, the businesses have got to put their hands in the pocket as well to actually do something to help. The council's there to assist where they can. We've tried multiple things down there. We've had street fairs, we've had different things. I was the steering chairperson at Bendigo Bank to get the Miranda branch open. We've got a bank down there now, but it's just about we need to work in partnership and see the best outcomes for the businesses down there, but they've got to assist as well.
So when I talk to the business owners in the town centre, you'd be unsurprised to hear that people is the key word they bring up. We need people. That's how you support local business. People shopping in those local businesses. People who live in and around the town centre will want to eat and drink and shop locally. So that's the positive cycle we need to create. If you've got people living in and around the town centre, they'll shop at the local businesses. That gets you better local businesses. That makes you a destination and more people come in. Thank you.
I have a local business and I employ local staff. And what it took for that to happen was council to be a little bit flexible, a little bit innovative for something new to happen. So I can see the benefits of that. I use local suppliers and they use space in the industrial area. I think we all, live in the community and support our local businesses, and that goes a massive long way to supporting local employment. But having something that people come to as well from outside the area, we've got a couple of businesses in that area that are real destination places, and supporting that is awesome.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is from Wes Hawkins. Thank you. What will you as a councillor do to encourage developers to invest in Bayswater and Meltham rather than other parts of Perth? B, get enough people living in the Bayswater and Meltham centres so that shops and services can thrive. And C, ensure quality development is designed that respect the heritage of Bayswater and serve us as a community? So I guess this is sort of a summary question of what we've been talking about recently. We'll start here at Lorna. Okay. What will you do as a councillor to A, encourage developers to invest in Bayswater and Meltham rather than other parts of Perth? B, get enough people living in the Bayswater and Meltham centres so that shops and services can thrive? And C, ensure quality development are designed that respect the heritage feel of Bayswater and serve us as a community?
Okay, so I think, we don't want to be known as somewhere that rejects development or developers, I think. But I think we do need to look at what people want to buy. If you want a tiny one-bedroom flat, you're going to be down in Highgate. You're going to be closer into the city. If you want a bit of a courtyard and a big balcony, you're probably going to come up towards Bayswater. So we need to get the economics right of what people are actually demanding and wanting to buy. And I think we need to be able to explain that clearly to developers. There's no way I can get through all this, sorry. I'm happy to chat about it.
I think, given that this is a summary question, how do you feel about 2 minutes each? Well, one minute? Okay.
30 solar study.
Okay, that's all right. So I think then B flows on from that. If you have some developments that, again, have been properly consulted on, I think some of the issues have been that plans have gone in and that in one particular occasion, it's bypassed council completely and people haven't sort of felt heard and felt represented in that process. So I think if you then have that proper process and you then have things that people actually want to buy, you will get more people living in the areas, and particularly Bayswater and Meltham. I think quality, that was it.
Sorry.
Laura, I talked too much.
It's a juggling act really, because you've got to actually look at the best situation where you can involve developers to come in, but without the impost on their neighbours. And it's really about bringing people to the area, but in good developments, not in bad developments, as we've seen what happens at the 7-Eleven, because I don't think that's a good development in William Street. And it's really about quality and bringing more shops to the area too. It's just not about building for residents and that, it's about trying to increase, to get businesses to come into the area where there is vacancies, and where there's land there, we can rezone the land so they can put more shops in there to bring more people to the area. Because when you haven't got the draw card to bring the people there, it's going to be very hard. It's good to bring all the people and get housing for them, but if you haven't got the draw card with the shops to bring the people into the shops, it's certainly not going to happen. So you've got a juggling act where you've got to encourage the developers, but you've also got to encourage the shops to try and diversify and have a niche to bring people in.
This is a really good question. So, look, as I'm going to mention during my speech there, I have an investment finance degree, but I have nothing to do with property development. But developers are investors, and I guess if I can apply sort of my knowledge of investment to this, what any investor wants, and I'm sure you can sympathise with this if you think about, you buying your house or you buying an investment property, is you want some certainty in what's going to happen to know that you'll get a return on it. So if you buy an investment property, you're going to want to get a tenant, you're going to want to make some money, you're going to make some capital gains on it. Developers are actually the same. They do it on a bigger scale. They're building. They want to sell their apartments and they want to, make profit and move on. They're not interested in wrecking our community. They actually want the right thing for the community because that makes better sales for their apartments or their buildings that they're putting in there. So coming to how we encourage them in there, we need to give them certainty. So we need to create the framework where they know they can come in and invest with certainty that they can complete the development successfully, that those apartments and those buildings will get sold and tenanted, and then they can move on from there. That's all connected to how we create the right quality guidelines around those developments. Sorry,
thank you. Yeah, we'll need the question. Definitely certainty. There's people in Bayswater that are holding off on selling their properties or holding off on developing their properties because they don't know what's next. I was lucky enough to be at the JGAP when they were talking about the York development at 9/11 earlier this week, and heard the passionate arguments from members of our community on that issue. I think I don't know everyone involved, so I think it was the chair of the meeting who said something about this development is really important for Bayswater because it will set the tone for future development, and I think that's right. So if one gets it right, then hopefully we've got a really great framework and idea that that developers will see what sort of things are acceptable for an area and what is not. We've got a great location, it's accessible, it's green, we've got the river and green spaces, we've got transport, airport, great people, we've got a great story to tell, and I think that will be attractive. In a way, we're sort of victim of the cycle of the economy, and I think if this is a really good time now to get the design and the planning right, we've got the people and tell our great story.
I'm far more interested in the requirements and the needs of the community than of the potential investors. The Meltham Structure Plan was a plan absolutely driven by the investors in order to make money, but took no cognizance of the people that wanted to live there. It was a plan for the people who want to cash up and go, not the people that want to live there. I'm much more interested in the residents. SCAR 12, the amendment for the town centre, that was like a plan to encourage developers to come in, a plan that provided zero for the community. Actually less than zero, because it's destroying 2 heritage buildings and a significant tree. Plan for the people, plan for a good neighbourhood, investment will come.
Thank you. If I go back,
Let's not keep those together.
we get a horrible sound if these two mics get close. The next question is from Andrew Watt, and it's a question for all the West Ward candidates, and it's regarding sinking the station or a bridge freeway over the top. So I'll read the question. With the Forestfield Airport link and the Midland line and the Ellenbrook line proposed to connect at the Bayswater train station, transport engineers indicate that the likely plan to redevelop the station and address the subway issues, we all know about the trucks sitting that subway, will be to build a huge concrete train freeway bridge running through the middle of our town centre, which is much bigger than the Glendalough train station. Do you support that approach, or do you support sinking the Bayswater train station to connect both sides of the town centre? So, and we're starting with Georgia this time. Starting with Terry.
Well, I certainly wouldn't support it on Ostasowski of a big bridge being built there with the train going over the top. I certainly would support it being put underground. I did approach the WA Eric Lumsden some time ago about Caledonia Avenue, having that sunken underground. And I actually put it to them that they could use the land on top, so they could actually build properties on top for businesses and lease them out, because the actual railway station would be underground, and they can utilise the land on top of it to commercialise it and either put apartments on it, other things, because there's a lot of things they could do with that. But certainly not put a bridge with a railway across the top. Certainly would support that. I'd be more in favour of underground, and look outside the circle where they can put buildings on top of that, so they can utilise that and get a return on their money.
So look, I'm definitely in favour of sinking if we could achieve that, and that is because the alternative does look like a freeway. If you look at any of the train stations or things that have been built in recent years, it's a giant concrete freeway, and I really don't want that running through our town centre. That's just gonna ruin it. You're not going to want to walk under an underpass or over an overpass to get across the town centre. We have to relink things back up. Underground would be my preference.
Yeah, it could be really lovely, and we've done it in Subiaco, and it's done in lots of other parts of the country where the train is underground. It would open up the space tremendously, and would free up some land. It could be really great, but of course we wouldn't have the fun of watching the trucks get stuck under.
Ready?
Yes, I'll recite it.
Unlike a lot of people, I think the trucks getting stuck in the subway is an important part of the... Okay, sorry. I think the idea of putting it underground is a completely foolish idea. Destroy the character of the town, destroy the amenity of the town.
Unlike everyone else, I actually haven't made my mind up on this one. I've spoken to a lot of people in a lot of different areas and a lot of different communities about it, groups about this. I'd want to see a cost-benefit analysis. I'd want to know where the money was coming from as well. So I don't think the money the state government's promised would be enough to sink the station. Happy to be disproved on that, but you'd want to know where the money's coming from. You need some private money, I would have thought.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for the next question's from Tessa Hopkins. Tessa's already asked one before. This is to all of the candidates in the West Ward. If elected, will you support the council commissioning a local development plan for the King William core area, a plan that will include site-specific design guidelines to ensure new development is architecturally respectful? We'll start with you, Ben, and work down.
Sure. I'll keep this answer really fast. So I think I've talked about that before. We absolutely need some better guidance around what is quality development in the town centre, and it's not a throwaway line. Council needs to put in place a structure to assess that and give clarity about what quality looks like, what is good, what does the community want. We absolutely need that. I agree.
I actually don't know. I'm not a planner. I'm really interested in the idea and seeing how it works in other places. But yeah, I don't know. But it looks like it could work really well.
Conceptually a good idea, but with the SCAR 12 currently in place, it's like lipstick on a pig.
Don't know how to follow that, Greg. To the point. I'd be supportive of it. I think there's been, I've forgotten some of the acronyms, but there has been some positive outcomes from sort of a consultative process looking at heritage, where people have sort of said, oh, actually we should keep that, let's change that, oh, if you care about that, okay, keep that. I think more of that would be good.
And Terry?
Yeah, you certainly need guidelines, and you certainly need better guidelines than what we've got at the moment. So I'd certainly be supporting something and looking along the guidelines to protect the heritage, but actually keep the streetscape and look at better developments.
Thank you all to that question. This one's from Mary. Mary here? Mary, thank you. What are all your thoughts on the significant tree register? And we'll start with Georgia.
I nominated my own tree for the significant tree register, but I shouldn't have to because I'm not going to chop it down. I think the significant tree register is an idea. It's a great idea. We do have significant trees in Bayswater we want to protect, but to get the urban forest that we need and the mitigate against climate change that we need and the more trees that we need, it's not going to go far enough.
100% support the significant tree register. If we're not going to turn Perth into a desert as represented by the cactus in Forest Place, we need to do something about the trees in the public domain and the private domain. The only mechanism to do something about that is something like a significant tree register. Simple as that.
I'm supportive of a tree register. I think the devil's in the detail on this one though. I was a bit disappointed in council knocking back a voluntary one a little while ago. But I also have had some residents raise kind of safety concerns around tree branches and things like that. So I think some of it just needs to be managed.
It's certainly one of those things I'd support, but there is some issues with it as well, because we have issues with trees where limbs fall off and residents complain and someone gets killed or injured. So you've got to look at the significant tree, but you've got to look at the value of the tree and the actual health of the tree. Because a lot of the times we say there's significant trees, but we can't see what's actually eating at the roots or different things. And when we've come to look at it in the past, we found that the tree is significant, but it's too badly damaged, it's got to be cut down. So you've got to have a balancing act on that. Thank you.
I absolutely want to see more tree canopy in Bayswater, but blanket approaches to tell people what to do in their backyards is not the right approach to this here. We talked about quality earlier, we need to think about using incentives to make people keep trees. So we talked about what's quality. Let's see trees part of the quality assessment. Let's make sure developers are given incentives to retain the trees rather than creating a stick approach.
Let's thank all the candidates for answering that question. This question is from A. Hudsaka.
It's my daughter.
Okay. Thank you. So this question is to all of the West Ward candidates. How did you vote in the Equal Marriage Survey?
I haven't voted yet.
I voted yes. I think it's really important. I respect other people with religious views, but I think it's important. Change we need to see in society. It's discriminatory at the moment.
I'm with Greg. I haven't voted yet.
I voted yes. Can't come soon enough.
I propped up Australia Post and voted yes. It's a crap idea having the postal survey. It's not for us to make any decisions about what other people do.
Thank you to the candidates for answering that question. Now, that actually brings to a conclusion all of the questions that we have, so I'm about to wrap the event up. I hope, could we just thank all of the candidates for giving This is an act of democracy. We're actually seeing democracy in action here at the moment. And for all of these people to put themselves out, to, I guess, wear their heart, their courage, their visions on their sleeve, and to put it out here in a community forum, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of effort to actually nominate. So thank you all very much for doing that. So the candidates, the process from here is that the candidates are going to stay around for at least another half an hour. I hope you're all able to make that. So please come and have a conversation one-on-one with anybody that you've seen in action, anybody that you'd like to get to know further. Don't be shy, come up and say hello. Just in wrapping, I'd like to thank Andrew Watt for being the timekeeper, for Michael Freeburn for operating the Facebook live streaming, but a big thank you to Kylie for organising the event. This is actually you wouldn't think it, but it does take a lot of time to be able to organise all the candidates, try and get them here, make them feel comfortable, make them feel as though they want to actually put themselves out. So to you, Kylie, thank you very much.
Also a big thank you to James from Future Faces who donated his time tonight. It was amazing, thank you, and the preparation that he had to put in. Ken on the PA, Steve and Rob and Craig who helped me set up as well and volunteered their time. So, you know, the Baysy community is pretty awesome. And thank you guys for your patience at the end there with all the West Ward questions. All right, thank you. Let's meet and greet.
It's a wrap. Your kids have been calling. Okay. Can I have a cookie?